Right now at 6, the Huntsville Fire Chief sharing new details after a large house fire over the holiday weekend.
Still see the damage on the house after firefighters worked for 7 hours to put out the flames. Tonight, the fire chief tells us what challenges they faced, plus the kindness that he saw after the fire.
All right, another hot and humid day on the way tomorrow. Upper 80s for northwest Arkansas, a bit warmer in the River Valley, and we'll be timing out some cooling rain showers for you just ahead.
Plus, the Springdale Public Library tells us how it is moving forward after bed bugs were found in the building.
And the region's getting ready for the next U.S. Men's World Cup game. Kicking off in less than an hour, we'll go out to Springdale to hear how the fans are getting ready to cheer on the red, white, and blue.
And thanks for joining us tonight at 6 on air and streaming on 5 News Plus. I'm Darren Bobb.
And I'm Morgan Wrigley. First tonight, the Huntsville Fire Chief is sharing some new details after a large house fire that happened over the holiday weekend.
Now, crews faced several challenges in that response. 5 News reporter Emily Moss has more.
Days after a large house fire here in Huntsville, the extensive damage is still visible even hundreds of feet away. Now, several crews were on scene here until well after 6 o'clock in the morning the next day. But Chief Kevin Shin says it's not the challenges of battling this fire that he's still thinking of. It's the kindness from this family. Just before midnight on Friday, a fire destroyed this home one Madison County family had spent decades building. By the time firefighters arrived, Fire Chief Kevin Shin says getting enough water to the home quickly became one of their biggest challenges.
I think our closest fire hydrant was over 1,400 feet, which is an enormous way to, if we were going to try to do a lay-in, it just wasn't possible. We brought in 5 or 6 of the other fire departments in the county to support us. We were totally dependent upon the tanker support that we got to try to deal with that fire.
And water wasn't the only obstacle. Shin says the home's construction created challenges of its own.
It was an older home that had been added on to multiple times over the years. There were different roof pitches, one on top of the other, so that when our firefighters were trying to reach those areas, they were not able to get a stream on the fire because some of the roofs overlapped each other. It just made it very difficult to actually access it.
No one was hurt in the fire, though 2 family dogs were killed. Despite losing their home and beloved pets, Shin says the family was still looking out for the firefighters as they worked to save what they could.
They were there, they brought us water as our people were out there working. Their house had just burned. It's a total loss. We were able to save some property, but that's the kind of people they are. And so I am heartbroken that we didn't have a better result for them. But again, those are the kind of people you want as your neighbors.
In Huntsville, covering news where you live, Emily Moss, 5 News.
All right, we need to get a first check of the forecast with Dominic Carrico. We've got a thunderstorm warning going on right now.
Yeah, you can see, Darren, most of the area is actually quiet, but there is this one lone severe thunderstorm that is now moving into Sebastian County there. So if you're watching us from Fort Smith, be on the lookout. This just moved through Van Buren with 55-mile-per-hour wind gusts. The Crawford County Emergency Management Department was reporting some trees down in that area. We're concerned about some 60-mile-per-hour winds with this and maybe some small hail. But the good news is, as it does continue to work off to the south and the west, it does appear to be weakening, so good news there. Looks like we're finding some winds between 30 and 40 miles per hour, so that would start to put us below severe limits. We'll watch that. There's another cell that's also into portions of far eastern Crawford County. It looks like just northwest there of Washburn, but that cell has started to weaken and fall apart as well. Now, we still have that level 1 out of 5 threat for severe weather, mainly for the River Valley if you're along and point south there of Interstate 40, but this isn't a really big severe weather risk, just an isolated risk that we'll continue to watch just for the next couple of hours or so. And we'll talk about that heat in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Dominic. Fort Smith police are searching for the missing child you see here on your screen. 13-year-old Nate Drackett was last seen on his bike this afternoon. Police say he was wearing a gray t-shirt, black shorts, and a blue camo Crocs and had a gray backpack. They say that he may have been traveling to the Bonanza area. Anyone who has any information about where he is asked to contact Fort Smith Police.
The Springdale Public Library is back open after a temporary closure caused by bed bugs. 5 News reporter Jada Daniels spoke with the director about the treatment process and how the library is moving forward.
During one of its busiest times of the year, the Springdale Public Library had to close its doors for 2 days after bed bugs were discovered inside the building. But officials tell me it has been deep cleaned, treated, and now they're ready to welcome readers back inside its doors. A routine inspection found bed bugs in several upholstered chairs, but Director Ann Gresham says pest management crews were able to investigate the problem. She tells me no evidence of bed bug activity was found in the children's area, event spaces, or on library shelves. And while affected chairs have been treated, they'll remain in quarantine for 10 days.
Closing our building for 2 days during our busiest season was a heavy decision to make. We know people rely on our services. We know families are here during the summer to continue their children's literacy journey and enjoy free family activities all summer long.
To help prevent future issues, the library will be undergoing weekly inspections with the pest management company. And Gresham tells me she wants the community to feel confident returning to the library this summer. In Springdale, covering news where you live, Jada Daniels, 5 News.
All right, Jada, thanks. Fort Smith City Directors tomorrow will again consider whether voters should decide this November to change the city's form of government. A citizen's petition is trying to get a question on the ballot changing the government from an administrative to a mayoral form. Directors will consider whether to bypass that tomorrow night and just put it on the ballot themselves. They tried to vote on it in May, but a vote ended in a tie. Since then, directors and the city attorney reached out to the Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office to ask about certain deadlines and potential future election dates. Directors are set to discuss the city's housing plan for the next 5 years as well.
In Arcoma, City Council is expected to discuss tomorrow night how to move forward with the city's police chief. He was placed on paid leave 2 weeks ago, and we still don't know the reason why. Police Chief Michael Ivey and Deputy Chief Mallory Speaks were placed on leave during a special meeting on June 23rd. Counselors said there was a list of grievances against the two, but did not go into specifics. Arcoma's mayor said rumors of embezzlement were not true. Ivey and Speaks were asked to provide written responses to the issues while they've been on leave. And Fayetteville City Council is expected to discuss an ordinance that would restrict the city from signing non-disclosure agreements with businesses. It comes amid public backlash after the city signed several with drone manufacturer Swarm Aero. The ordinance wouldn't outright ban NDAs. City Council would have to approve signing one during a public meeting. The city already has changed its rules on signing them, requiring approval from the mayor and a city attorney. A judge also sided with Fayetteville during a lawsuit last month, which claimed the city violated the Freedom of Information Act when they didn't provide a resident with an NDA signed with Swarm Aero.
Mayor Molly Ron announcing today Fayetteville is changing its paternal leave policy. City employees will now be eligible for 6 weeks of paid leave. Federal and state law only requires employers to give unpaid paternal leave for 12 weeks. But the mayor said she wanted paid leave policies in the city since the start of her term.
This applies to employees, this applies to those in domestic partnerships, after the birth of a child, after the adoption of a child, or after the placement of a child through the foster care system. So the goal was to be as inclusive as possible, to be supportive of the people that do the work of the city and that make it possible for us to do all that we do, to really show up for them and support them at what is a critical time.
The policy starts immediately. Employees who have worked 1 year with the city are now eligible for that new benefit. Employees who have worked less than a year will get a prorated amount of leave.